I love basketball. I've played basketball casually my whole life, and I've been watching the NBA for over a decade. I always wanted to follow the WNBA too, but for the longest time, it just didn't happen. Getting up to speed with a new sports league always takes a bit of work, and the W's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad media coverage did not help. However, the basketball world is in the middle of a great shift. Transcendent young stars are taking the WNBA by storm and bucking the tired narratives that have plagued the league for decades. And this summer, I got swept up in it too. Around the All-Star break, I dove into the WNBA headfirst, almost completely blind. And now, a few months later, they got me. I'm in. I'd be lying if I said it's been a perfect experience. Yes, I've seen some downright ghastly finishing. There have been broadcasts that have made my thumb sore from hitting the mute button so hard. And yes, the league's media is still a work in progress.
There's a unit or a portion of the media that is very pro WNBA to a fault. And then there's those of us that are realistic. How many times have you watched WNBA games since Caitlin Clark got hurt?
But despite all that, the WNBA still has a lot to offer any basketball fan, and people are starting to understand that. With expansion teams coming to Toronto, Portland, Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia in the next few years, along with the league just drawing more interest in general, the W is growing and growing fast. With the playoffs upon us, I want this video to help new WNBA viewers like myself from a few months ago quickly get a baseline understanding of the league. And for veteran fans, you can see what the W looks like to a newcomer in 2025. I'm far from an expert at this point, but I at least know enough to be invested in any given game. And my hope is that you will too by the time I'm done talking. But remember, everything in this video is from someone who started following the league like a month ago, so please take any opinions with more than a grain of salt. Maybe like a pile of salt, or a large chunk. First, there are a few basic format structure things. Right now, there are 13 teams in the league, and by the time the current slate of expansions are done in 2030, there will be 18. They're split into an Eastern and Western conference, but it really doesn't matter because the playoffs are just the top 8 teams overall. As of the 2025 season, there are 44 regular season games. The playoffs start on September 14th, and in the current format, the first round is best of 3, the second round is best of 5, and the finals are best of 7. As a disclaimer, this is mostly just going to be an overview of each playoff team and its key players, so I'm not going to get too deep into the matchups. With all that out of the way, let's get into it, starting with the top team from the regular season.
Somebody said I just know Courtney Bottoms. Hell no!
The Minnesota Lynx fell just short of last year's title, but this season they came back with a vengeance. This team has just been a meat grinder. Take a look at just about any stat and they'll almost certainly be at or near the top of the list. Most points per game, highest field goal percentage, highest three-point percentage, most assists per game, highest offensive rating, highest defensive rating, obviously the highest net rating. I mean, the list goes on. They're led by Napheesa Collier, who was a shoo-in for MVP for most of the year. And although that conversation opened back up at the end of the year, she's still absolutely one of the top 2 candidates. Collier can do everything on the floor at a high level, and her efficiency with her volume of touches is insane. I mean, 23, 7, and 5 with 3 stocks on 50, 40, 90 shooting is ridiculous. The pieces around her are great too, with all-star guards Courtney Williams and Kayla McBride, and a defensive player of the year candidate in Elena Smith. Bridget Carlton won't stuff the stat sheet, but she rounds out the starting lineup as a great 3-and-D option. And Natisha Heidemann, Jessica Shepard, and midseason acquisition Dejanay Carrington lead one of the league's best bench units. The Lynx have a complete, cohesive roster, and they're the odds-on favorite to win the championship for a reason. So does this juggernaut have any flaws? Yeah, kinda. Maybe? For one thing, while they have so many really good players and maybe the best overall rotation in the league, outside of Fee, they don't have a ton of top-end star power. On a similar note, almost everyone on the team has a very versatile skill set, but that also means there are some archetypes they don't really have access to. They don't have a traditional center. Courtney Williams is a good playmaker, but she's not a top-tier playmaking point guard. This obviously hasn't hurt them in the regular season, but I just worry that in the postseason, when you go against top players who excel in their defined roles, there could potentially be some matchups they don't really have an answer for. That's a nitpick though, and as long as Napheesa Collier is on the court and everyone keeps playing how they have been, the Lynx have nothing to worry about.
That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
The Aces are one of the few teams I was marginally familiar with before this year, for one reason and one reason alone. The GOAT, A'ja Wilson. I knew the Aces employed the 3-time MVP, 2-time champion, 2-time defensive player of the year, so imagine my surprise when I checked the standings mid-season and saw them fighting tooth and nail for the 8th seed, and I wasn't the only one who was shocked. Initially a top 3 title favorite at the start of the season, the Aces sitting at 12-13 at the end of July was puzzling for the whole WNBA community. No doubt they had an aging roster, but one more year around the sun shouldn't be enough to make a perennial contender completely fall off a cliff. Everything came to a head on August 2nd when, on their own home floor, the Aces lost to the Lynx by 53 points, the second greatest margin of victory in WNBA history. It seemed like on that day, the Aces season and their historic stretch of dominance had both come to an end.
Then something just snapped. Something inside of me. I didn't care anymore. I didn't care about being better than Kakarot. I didn't care about being a Super Saiyan. I didn't care if I lived. I didn't care about anything.
they proceeded to rip off 16 straight wins to close the year, going from a borderline playoff team to the 2 seed. That tied the second longest win streak in WNBA history and instantly shot A'ja Wilson to the top of MVP consideration. And rightfully so. A'ja averages the most points, rebounds, and blocks in the league, and she's tied for second in steals. Her and Fee both had unreal seasons, but this historic stretch earned my personal vote. Don't get it twisted though, A'ja was balling out all year. It was the players around her stepping up that fueled their second half dominance. Her co-stars Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray have really gotten into a groove with their shooting and playmaking. And Jewel Lloyd has been a corner sniper after a slow start to the year. Lloyd moving to the bench in favor of Kirsten Bell seems to be one of the big things that turned their season around, as she's been excelling in her role since. Watching a league where you don't know the history is crazy, because I thought she was just a corner 3 specialist, but then I went to her basketball reference and it turns out she's a 6-time All-Star who was averaging 25 points just 2 years ago. I don't know what happened since then, but she's been a great role player this year. Other players who have really stepped up their game include Melissa Smith, Dana Evans, Kirsten Bell, and Aaliyah Nye. Their numbers won't jump off the page, but they've gotten much more consistent hitting shots and playing physical defense. Kaya Stokes also plays on this team. But for real, the whole roster has been playing with a different level of intensity as of late, and it really shows up in their rebounding and defense. Any team with proven championship coaching, experienced role players, and the best player in the world is one you have to watch out for come playoff time, and you especially don't want to see him coming off 16 straight. At this point, no one should be surprised if the Aces carry this momentum into the playoffs and make a serious run.
I'm going to go to the ATM, and I'm going to sell my house, and I'm going to put all my money on DeMarcus Cousins.
The Atlanta Dream had a fantastic year, especially in the second half of the season. While they never ripped off a streak quite as long as the Aces, 17-5 post All-Star break is phenomenal, and it's not hard to see why they've been so successful. They have a wealth of talent and skill sets that complement each other well. Their All-Star guard, Alicia Gray, had a monster season that put her on the bubble of MVP talks. And although the Dream do most of their damage from 3, their bigs are strong enough to really punish teams down low in the right matchups. Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones were both new additions in the offseason, and they helped the Dream lead the league in rebound percentage this year. And then you look at the complementary pieces on the roster, and it's just a bunch of really solid players. Jordan Canada, great defender and playmaker who can sometimes knock down a shot. Tahina Paupau, sniper. Her box scores won't blow you away, but if you watch her shoot, it's so easy to see her becoming one of the best shooters in the league within the next few years. They've got Naz Hillman, do-it-all forward who led the bench unit for most of the season, and even though she's been starting for a while now, she's still the favorite to win 6th Woman of the Year. That's most of the important players. Maya Caldwell is also in the rotation, and Nia Coffey has had some good minutes. But there is someone I've neglected to mention thus far, arguably their second best player. The first time I watched her play, I knew I was witnessing something special. Undeniably, one of the greatest shot chuckers of our time. Never seen a look she didn't like. Kentucky legend, Ryan Howard. She averages 10 3-point attempts a game, shooting 32%. That's the most 3-point attempts per game in the league by about 2.5, and she also has the most total attempts. In fact, this year she had the 6th most total 3-point attempts in a season in WNBA history. But that's not that crazy, right? 3-point volume is through the roof these days. She missed a quarter of the season. Some people might interpret this as hating, but it's not. I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate the artistry of the season Ryan Howard just had. But anyway, going into the playoffs, this team is going to lean heavily on their 3-point shooting and stifling defense. They really focus on running people off the 3-point line, allowing the fewest long-range attempts in the league. And they'll hit you with their own barrage of 3s on the other end, averaging the 2nd most attempts per game. This works out to them shooting, on average, 8 more 3s per game than their opponents. So far, this strategy has been a recipe for success. Like any other high-volume 3-point shooting team, they'll live and die by the 3s in the playoffs, but getting more cracks at it than your opponent is a huge advantage that should help the Dream this postseason. The Phoenix Mercury are an odd team. Ever since I learned that this year's roster only has 2 of the same players from last year, I can't stop thinking about it. How is that possible? And how are they good? Well, a lot of it has to do with their MVP candidate, Alyssa Thomas. The numbers she puts up don't even look real. This year she averaged about 15, 9, and 9 with 2 stocks, which puts her at 2nd in rebounding, tied for 2nd in steals, and 1st in assists by a wide margin. Mind you, she's doing all of this as a power forward. So if she's averaging damn near a triple-double and on a winning team, is she the MVP? Is she the GOAT?
No.
Thomas is an amazing player and a total engine on both sides of the floor, but there's a flaw in her game that keeps me from putting her up there with the top 2. It's no secret, she can't shoot the basketball. So while she's a phenomenal player and has the 3rd place MVP spot locked up, Thomas is more like a fully formed Ben Simmons than a full-on Nikola Jokic. But the gaps in Thomas's game are filled by her teammates. Her co-stars are Satu Sabali, one of the most versatile scoring bigs in the league, and Kalia Copper, a veteran all-star guard and former finals MVP. As for the rest of the Mercury's rotation, I've been impressed by Sammy Whitcomb's three-point shooting and Natasha Mack's rim protection. Outside of that, a lot of it's been 4 rookies balling out. I'd be lying if I said I was totally familiar with their games, but for Monique Akoa-Makani, Kitia Laksa, Lexi Held, and Catherine Westbeld to all be important rotation pieces year 1 is super impressive. They also traded for Dawana Bonner halfway through the season, and she can get you a bucket. I will say this is a team that I'm not totally in on. Don't get me wrong, for this completely overhauled roster to walk away from the regular season with home court advantage is a feat in itself. However, the Mercury aren't the most consistent team night to night, and that starts with their stars. Satu Sabali in particular is someone where you don't really know what you're going to get any given game. The highs for her are really high and the lows are really low, but I don't want to hate too much. This is a really good team and they can compete with anyone. The only question is consistency, but in the playoffs that's enough to make me a little wary. The defending champs have had a bit of a down year. Their regular season finish was disappointing because this roster is absolutely loaded. To start off, they have 3 consensus top 10-ish players in Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart, and Jonquel Jones. Sabrina's percentages are a bit down this year, but she's still one of the best shooters in the league and a dynamic scoring threat all over the floor. Meanwhile, Stewart and Jones make up the most talented frontcourt in the W on both ends, and the supporting pieces are great too. Midway through the season, the Liberty signed Emma Miesemann, who was playing in Europe, to be a backup big for them. I didn't know anything about her when she signed, but it turns out Miesemann is a multiple-time All-Star and former Finals MVP that the defending champs just added for free? Yeah, alright man. This is a lot like when the Warriors signed Boogie, but if you still had some gas left in the tank. And then Natasha Cloud and Leonie Fibic are 2 of my personal favorite non-All-Stars. Cloud is someone that just moves right, and she's a great playmaker too. She's one of those players where it just feels like things go well every time she touches the ball. And then Fibic is the model of that 3-and-D wing that teams are always looking for. Kennedy Burke has had a good season shooting the ball as well. So coming off a championship with all those great players, you'd think the New York Liberty would be the most dominant team in the league. But they haven't been. They're the 5 seed. So what happened? Well, some of it is just due to injury. Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones missed 13 games each, and a lot of the other rotation players got banged up here and there. But even though they should be healthy for the playoffs, there are still a couple of concerns for this squad. The first issue is turnovers. Among this year's playoff teams, the Liberty averaged the 2nd most turnovers per game in the regular season and had the 3rd highest turnover percentage. That's just too many for a team with so much experience. And then the second issue, which I think is the most pressing, is the rebounding. They get the least offensive rebounds in the league and they give up the most. That is not a recipe for success. That being said though, at their best, no one can keep up with the Liberty. There's no question that they have the talent to repeat, but it's all going to hinge on if they can play physical and take care of the basketball.
My leg! My leg!
Oh my god, it's time to talk about Caitlin Clark. Is she the GOAT? Is she a fraud? Just kidding, she got totally super injured. It's a travesty that the young face of the league struggled so much health-wise this year, but the only silver lining of her absence is that it gave other players opportunities to shine. And shine they did. The Clarkless Fever climbed their way to the 6th seed on the backs of Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. Both All-Stars this year, Mitchell took over the primary backcourt scoring duties, and Boston held it down in the frontcourt. To be honest, I was initially dubious of the Aaliyah Boston and Natasha Howard starting frontcourt, because in the very first game I watched this summer, I saw them miss 3 wide open layups in a row. But they both had really good seasons and proved me wrong. I never had doubts about Kelsey Mitchell though. She can score with the best of them. And then their wings, Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull, have had really good shooting seasons. But this team has had so many injuries. Ari McDonald was giving the team good minutes before she went down. Same with Chloe Bibby. Cunningham, who I mentioned earlier, got hurt. Sydney Colson was at least running around out there before her injury. This is one of the last segments that I'm recording, and I just saw that Demirs Duntas got hurt too. And of course, Caitlin only played 13 games, most of which she clearly wasn't healthy. I want to give a ton of credit to the Fever for making it to the playoffs in a season where seemingly everything is going against them. But as far as their postseason outlook,
It's not looking good, bruv.
it would be nothing short of a miracle for them to make it out of the first round with the roster in the state it's currently in. The rotation has seen so much change over the course of the year that I have no idea what we're going to see in the playoffs, but I worry for them. I mean, we know Kelsey Mitchell is going to do her thing, and Aaliyah Boston is a pretty safe bet, but if they want to compete in the playoffs, they need people they signed off the street like a week ago to start hooping. Out of respect, I don't want to name names, but there are people on this roster who look like 2K-generated free agents. If the Fever want to win a playoff game, they need at least some of those pieces to step up. No matter what happens though, they've made the absolute best out of a bad situation this season. You know, for how many good players are on this team, they really should be a lot better. They've looked great at times, but some brutal stretches throughout the year drag them down in the standings. Nneka Ogwumike is comfortably a top 10 player in the league, and she leads the Storm with her elite two-way ability. Their secondary scorer and lead playmaker is perennial all-star Skylar Diggins. Their third all-star, Gabby Williams, led the league in steals by a country mile and is one of the Defensive Player of the Year favorites. She had a solid offensive season too. And their fourth all-star, Brittany Sykes, is one of the most explosive players in the league and another great defender. Sykes is a hilarious player to watch because she's always near the ball and she's always moving at 1,000 miles an hour, but it usually works out. Erica Wheeler and Ezzie Magbagor have been super solid complementary pieces, and their rookie, number 2 overall pick Dominique Malanga, had a slow start to the year, but in the second half of the season, she looked like a superstar in the making. Seriously, watch out for her. But yeah, this combination of talent ended up producing one of the best defenses in the league. As a team, they averaged the most steals and blocks of anybody. So then with 4 all-stars and good players around them, an elite defense, and plenty of experience, why was the Storm's record so mid? Well, a big part of it is that they were 4-9 in games decided by 5 or less points. That's bad. Those close game struggles reflect poorly on the coaching staff, and they also highlight the fact that this is an older team that could potentially get gassed late in games. The Storm have no shortage of talent, but if they want to sniff the second round of the playoffs, they need to tighten up. We know the defense will be strong, but will they be able to score and rebound consistently? We'll see. The scrappiest team in the WNBA, the hungriest, the team with the most heart, the most dog. Against all odds, in their inaugural season, the Golden State Valkyries, the expansion team, made the playoffs. And not just that, they were comfortably in the playoff picture practically all year. And their best player, Kayla Thornton, got hurt halfway through the season. To think, they did it all with the power of friendship, and shooting a lot of threes, and playing really good defense. It really is impossible to overstate just how fantastic and shocking of a season the Valkyries just had. Led by Coach of the Year favorite Natalie Nakase, just about everyone on this team had a career year. You have to start with Veronica Burton, who's the runaway favorite to win Most Improved Player. She's really come into her own as a scorer and a playmaker, and she's had to step up as a leader on the court even more since Kayla Thornton went down. Thornton had an MIP case of her own, averaging 14 and 7 before her season got cut short. But aside from Burton, Cecilia Zendelazini, Temi Fagbenle, and Kyla Charles have all been playing the best basketball of their careers as well. Zendelazini in particular has been an awesome stretch big whenever she can stay healthy. 2 of the younger players on the roster, Janelle Salaun and Ileana Rupert, might sound familiar to diehard NBA fans, and so far they've been faring a lot better than their brothers. Although for what it's worth, I think Ryan Rupert could be solid if he got touches. But yeah, Ileana Rupert from her center position has been one of the most lethal shooters in the league, shooting 44% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. Salaun has been just as impressive, with an all-around game built on her athleticism. Beyond that, there are so many players that have made important contributions to this team that it's hard to keep track of them all. I'm just gonna rapid fire them so that if one of them has a great playoff game, I have all my bases covered. Tiffany Hayes, Monique Billings, Carly Latte, Kate Martin, Letitia Amahir, Caitlin Chun. As far as game plan, the Valks' general strategy is to heave up as many threes as possible and then pack the paint on defense. They shoot the most threes and they allow the most three-point attempts against them, which is a risky strategy, but so far it's paid off more often than not. Their ferocious defense has teams shooting on average 40% from the field against them, by far the lowest mark in the W. They also allow the 3rd lowest three-point percentage in the WNBA, and a lot of that is luck, but it's also great closeouts and rotations. This is a full team of competitors, but it is hard to see them matching up with any of the top playoff teams. But regardless of what happens in the postseason, this year was an absolute success for Golden State. Well, we're at the end of the video. I originally wanted to talk about all 13 teams, but then I realized that's a lot of teams. So for now,
The rest are nobodies.
but shout out Paige Beckers, shout out Sonia Citron, shout out Tina Charles. You'll get them next year. You know, I think the playoffs will already have started by the time I get this video out, so oops. But even if my not-so-expert analysis has already aged poorly before this drops, I hope this video helped persuade you to give the W a shot if you were on the fence. Like I said at the start, I think this league has so much to offer, and now's as good a time to get in as any. Okay, thank you, bye.
They're playing basketball
all around the world.